My sister stole my fiancé a week before our wedding, and our parents sided with her. But what I did in response shocked everyone. Let me start from the beginning. I'm Lily Thompson, 33 years old these days, but let me take you back 6 years to when this whole mess kicked off. Back then, I was still green enough to think life handed out fairy tale endings like candy at Halloween. I was shacked up in a cozy little apartment with my fiancé, Ryan Reynolds. We'd been a team since our college days, putting in 6 solid years to build what I figured was a rock-steady base for our life together. Ryan, tall guy, dark hair, and he had this killer smile that could charm the socks off anybody in 2 seconds flat. He was hustling as a financial advisor at a small outfit nearby, while I was just cutting my teeth in the marketing game. Money wasn't exactly pouring in, but we got by just fine, or at least that's what I told myself. My folks are Daniel and Susan Thompson, and then there's my little sister, Charlotte, who's 3 years behind me. She's been the golden child in my parents' eyes ever since she popped into the world. Growing up, it was all Charlotte this and Charlotte that. They never missed her dance recitals or soccer matches. But for my stuff, oh, they'd always have some lame excuse handy. I'd learned to shrug it off, though it still jabbed me in the ribs now and then. So, when Ryan dropped to one knee on our 6th anniversary, I was over the freaking moon. We'd tossed around the idea of tying the knot before, but him actually proposing caught me off guard in the best way. That night, I dialed up my folks, practically bursting. Mom, Ryan popped the question. We're getting hitched. There was this weird, long silence on her end before she finally piped up, "That's great, honey," in a tone flatter than a pancake. "Let's all meet up and celebrate," I suggested, a little thrown by her blah reaction. I brushed it off. Maybe she was just wiped out, I told myself. Then I rang Charlotte, and her response was even odder. "Oh, congrats, I suppose," she mumbled, sounding like I'd just told her the weather. "Thanks," I shot back, puzzled. "I'd love for you to be my maid of honor. What do you say?" "Sure, wouldn't skip it," she replied, quick but lukewarm. Ryan and I settled on keeping the wedding small, just close family and pals, maybe 45 folks tops. We reckoned it'd save us some cash to stash toward a house down payment instead of blowing it all on one day. But when we sat down with our parents to hash it out, bam, curveball city. "We'd love to chip in for half," Ryan's mom said, beaming like she'd won the lottery. "And we'll pick up the other half," my dad jumped in. I damn near spit out my coffee. My parents had never shelled out for anything big in my life. College was all loans. My first car was my own sweat and savings. And now they're tossing money at my wedding. "You serious?" I asked, squinting at them like they'd grown extra heads. "Absolutely," Mom said, giving my hand a little pat. "It's your special day, Lily." Looking back, I should have clocked the warning signs, Mom dodging my gaze, Dad's weird smirk. But I was too jazzed about their sudden generosity to care. With cash worries off the table, I went all out on my dress. Found this stunner at a downtown boutique, an A-line beauty with lacy sleeves and a train that stretched on like a country road. Cost a small fortune, more than I'd ever dropped on anything, but slipping it on? I knew it was the one. I hauled it over to my parents' place, the gown laid out like royalty in my back seat. Walked into the living room, and there's Charlotte, sprawled on the couch, glued to her phone like always. She barely flicked her eyes up when I came in. "Hey, Liv," I said. "I brought my wedding dress to show off." She glanced over, looking bored as hell. "Cool, I guess." I swallowed my annoyance and unzipped the garment bag, sliding out the dress with care. Mom gasped, "Oh, Lily, it's stunning." I held it up to myself, grinning ear to ear. "Ain't it just perfect?" Fell head over heels the second I saw it. Charlotte's face went kinda sickly green. Must be sweet having Mom and Dad bankroll everything, she grumbled under her breath. They're only covering half. I set her straight. Ryan's folks are handling the rest. Whatever, she snapped, snatching her phone and stomping off. Mom sighed. Don't pay her any mind. She's just green with envy. Yeah, I'm used to it, I said, tucking the dress back in its bag. Charlotte's always had this thing about wanting what I've got, always trying to outdo me. Like when I'd bring home A's, she'd kill herself for A pluses. Or when I started dating Ryan, she had to snag the football team captain. Over the next few weeks, Mom dove into wedding planning like it was her full-time gig, calling me nonstop about flowers, seating, food, stuff I hadn't even thought of. Caught me off guard how into it she was. But as the big day crept closer, Ryan started acting off. He'd zone out when I was talking, like his mind was a million miles away. You all right? I'd ask. He'd flash that smile and say, yeah, just work stuff, or the wedding, brushing it off. A week before the vows, Mom invited us over for dinner. Ryan was fidgety as hell on the drive over, hands drumming the wheel. You good? I asked, reaching for his hand. Fine, he muttered, yanking it back to mess with the radio. We got there, and Charlotte's already lounging around in some fancy dress, way too much for a casual family meal. She threw her arms around Ryan a little too tight when we walked in, and I caught him stiffen before hugging her back. Dinner was awkward as hell. Dad kept coughing like he had a frog in his throat. Mom's smile looked plastered on, and Charlotte kept sneaking looks at Ryan, who was just poking at his food. I ducked out to the bathroom, hoping a breather would shake the weird vibe clinging to me. When I strolled back in, my gut dropped. Charlotte had slid into my seat next to Ryan, their heads close, her laughing at something he'd said. Mom was watching them with this smug little look. What's going on here? I asked, hovering by the dining room edge. Everybody's heads whipped up like deer in headlights. Nobody said squat for a beat. Then Charlotte smirked, this cocky, victorious grin that twisted my insides. Guess it's time we spill it, huh? She said, eyeballing Ryan. Spill what? I shot back, my voice wobbling. She reached over, plopped her hand on Ryan's arm, and dropped the bomb. Ryan and I've been a thing for 6 months. He's in love with me, not you. I stared at Ryan, waiting for him to crack up, call her nuts. But he just kept his eyes on his plate. That true? I asked, voice barely holding. He finally looked up, pale as a ghost. I'm sorry, Lily. Didn't mean for it to go down like this. The room started spinning. I grabbed a chair to keep from keeling over. So, y'all just decided to blindside me at dinner? I swept my eyes around the table. Dad wouldn't even look at me. Mom's face was way too calm, like she'd rehearsed this moment in a mirror. The wedding's off, I blurted out, but then she cut in sharp. Hold up, it ain't canceled, she said, cool as a cucumber. We've already shelled out for it all. Charlotte's just gonna step into your shoes. Her words slammed into me like a sucker punch right to the chest. I couldn't catch my breath, couldn't even think straight. Are you nuts? I finally choked out. You can't just swap me out of my own damn wedding like I'm a spare tire. Charlotte smirked, leaning back in her chair. It's not your gig anymore, Lily. It's mine now. I spun toward Dad, begging for an ally. Dad, you hearing this? He coughed, awkward as hell. Your mom's got a point, Lily. Ryan's folks and us already paid up. Scrapping it now would just flush all that cash down the drain. I don't give a rat's ass about the money, I yelled, my hands curling into tight fists. Man, I wanted to leap over that table and smack that smug grin off Charlotte's face. This is my wedding, Ryan piped up, voice all wobbly. I'm sorry, Lily. I glared around the room as the ugly truth hit me. Did y'all know about this all along? Is that why you jumped in to pay, Mom? You had this cooked up from the start, didn't you? She froze for a split second too long before muttering, "No, course not." That little hiccup? It screamed guilty. "Why'd you wait till a week before to drop this bomb?" I asked, my voice cracking like old wood. Ryan clammed up, but Charlotte didn't miss a beat. "He was too chicken to fess up himself," she said with a shrug. "So I took the wheel." I stumbled back from the table, feeling like I might hurl. "I'm out of here." Charlotte's voice chased me, all breezy. "Hey, don't forget to leave that wedding dress. I'll be needing it now." I bolted out of the house without a word, tears blurring everything as I fumbled with my keys. I peeled out to the apartment I'd shared with Ryan. His apartment, since the lease was in his name, and now I had to ditch it. When I got there, I didn't break down. Nah, I was too pissed for tears. I yanked my suitcases out and started chucking clothes in like a madman. Then I spotted that wedding dress hanging on the closet door. Didn't even think twice. Grabbed some scissors and went to town. Snip, snip, snip. Every slice felt like payback, and I left the shredded bits all over the bed we'd slept in together. I dialed up my best pal, Emily, who lived clear across town. "Can I crash at your place for a bit?" I asked when she picked up. "Hell yeah," she said, no hesitation. "What's up? You sound like crap." "I'll fill you in when I get there," I mumbled, hollowed out. Wedding's toast. That night, I crashed on her couch, bawling till my eyes ran dry. Emily stuck by me, squeezing my hand, shoving tissues and tea my way. Tea I didn't even sip. "What's your next move?" she asked as the sun peeked through her blinds. "Gotta email everybody who was coming," I rasped, throat raw from crying. "Let 'em know it's off." I fired off a shaky mass email. "Due to some unexpected crap, the wedding between me and Ryan Sullivan ain't happening. Sorry for the hassle." Replies poured in fast. Friends were floored, tossing out sympathy and "you okay?" messages. I couldn't stomach rehashing it a million times. Then relatives started chiming in. "Your mom called, says the wedding's still on, but Charlotte's the bride now." "What's the deal, Lily?" I shut my phone off. Couldn't handle the flood. At work, I marched straight to my boss's office. Tom's always been solid, more like a big brother than a suit. He looked up from his screen, and his face dropped. "Lily, what's wrong?" I unloaded the whole mess, words tumbling out like a busted dam. When I wrapped up, he looked ready to punch something. "Those jerks don't deserve you," he growled. "But I might have a fix." He laid it out. Company was opening a new branch out of state. Needed someone seasoned to kick things off. "Comes with a relocation deal and a fat raise," he said. "Yours if you want it." "When can I start?" I shot back, no second thoughts. "How's next week sound?" "Perfect. Day before Charlotte and Ryan's big switcheroo." I was on a plane, hauling ass across the country, with the company hooking me up a furnished pad. Landed with just my clothes and a few odds and ends. I threw myself into the gig. Long hours, extra projects, whatever I could grab. Boss noticed, gave me props. 5 months in, bam, first promotion. A year later, another. Paychecks kept climbing, and 4 years down the road, I'd stashed enough for a down payment on my own place. Mortgage was steep, but my salary could swing it. Finally owned something big, something all mine. Only family I kept up with was Aunt Diana, Mom's sister. She'd call every month, sometimes swing by. Never brought up my folks unless I poked, which I hardly ever did. One visit, she dropped some news I didn't fish for. "Charlotte had another kid," she said, testing the waters. "That's 3 now." "Good for her," I said, flat as a board. "She ain't working," Aunt Diana went on. "Your parents took out loans for Ryan's business." I nodded, sipping my coffee. How generous. She squinted at me. You really don't give a damn, do you? Nope, I said, plain and simple. Truth was, I felt zilch about them. No rage, no glee, no nothing. They were ghosts from an old book I'd read and tossed aside. 6 years rolled by. Knocked out my mortgage early, thanks to some hefty bonuses. Life was good. Solid friends, a job I dug, cash in the bank, and best of all, freedom. I'd found my peace. Then one Tuesday afternoon in October, my phone buzzed with a number I didn't know. Almost let it slide to voicemail, but some itch made me pick up. Hello? A pause, then, Lily, it's your mom. Don't hang up, please. I know I've got no business calling after what we did. She was right. It was unforgivable. But just hear me out, she begged. I didn't say a word, letting the quiet stretch. Could hear a kid wailing in the background. Things are rough, Lily, she pushed on when I didn't bite. Real rough. Ryan's business tanked hard. Those loans your dad and I took out for him, we're drowning, can't pay 'em. Bank's about to snatch our house. I let out a sharp, bitter laugh. And this is my problem, Hal? Charlotte and Ryan lost their place 6 months back. She barreled on, dodging my jab. They've been crashing with us ever since. Them and all 3 kids, Mom went on. Charlotte's never held a job, you know. She just doesn't. And Ryan, Guy can't land work anywhere around here 'cause his rep's shot to hell after that business of his went belly up. I cut in, voice flat as a pancake. Still waiting on why you're dumping this sob story on me. I could smell what was coming a mile off. She sucked in a big breath. We're desperate, Lily. We need cash. Bad, she said. I'm pulling double shifts at the hospital now, and your dad's back at the hardware store, even though he retired ages ago. But it ain't cutting it. We're barely keeping the lights on with 3 little ones running around. I was this close to hanging up, ready to tell her to shove her mess where the sun don't shine, when a wild, brilliant idea sparked in my head. Hold up, I said slow, dragging it out. I might pitch in, but there's a catch. This could have been the end of the story, but you can't even imagine what I did next. Thanksgiving's 2 weeks out, I laid out. I'll roll back into town, and you're throwing a big old family shindig. Round up everybody. Aunt Diana, Uncle Leonard, Grandma Thompson, all the cousins, for a proper reunion. Oh, absolutely, she jumped in, all eager. We'd love that. Means more than you know. Aunt Diana, already familiar with the story, reached across the table and gave my hand a reassuring squeeze. I took a steadying breath and continued. When I told my mother I was calling off the wedding, she didn't just object. She flat out told me I had no right to make that decision because they had paid for it. And as I walked out that night, Charlotte called after me, asking if I'd at least leave my wedding dress behind for her, since, according to her, I wouldn't be needing it anymore. That night, I went home, grabbed the dress, and cut it to shreds. Then I packed my bags, walked out the door, and by the next morning, I was gone. I left town without a backward glance, and I haven't spoken to any of them since. The silence around the table was suffocating. My father kept his eyes fixed on his plate. Ryan looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. My mother, though, she sat rigid, her expression carefully composed, but I could see the barely contained panic in her eyes. I let the tension hang for a moment before speaking again. That was 6 years ago, and then, 2 weeks ago, my mother called me, out of the blue. Apparently, Ryan's big business venture, which my parents had poured their money into, has completely collapsed. They're about to lose their house. I let that sink in before adding, Charlotte, Ryan, and their 3 kids have already lost theirs. That's why they're all living here now. And after 6 years of silence, they've suddenly reached out to me. Not for an apology, not to make things right, but for money. Reaching into my purse, I pulled out a small envelope. Slowly, deliberately, I opened it, took out two crisp $100 bills, and laid them neatly on the table in front of me. This, I said, locking eyes with each of them, is what you deserve, $200. Not because you need it, but because I want you to understand exactly how little your betrayal means to me now. I could give you more, a lot more, but that would suggest that I care. And I don't. Not anymore. Then I turned my attention to the rest of the family. I'm sorry to all of you for bringing this up at Thanksgiving. That wasn't my plan, but I couldn't just sit here and pretend we're some picture perfect family when the truth is, they threw me away the second it was convenient for them. Pushing my chair back, I stood up and headed for the door. Behind me, I heard the scrape of chairs against the floor. Aunt Diana was the first to follow, then Uncle Leonard, then my cousins Jacob and Natalie. By the time I reached the front door, more than half the family had left the table. That night, for the first time in years, I slept soundly. When morning came, I checked out of the hotel early, drove straight to the airport, and left my hometown behind for good, this time knowing I would never return. A week after I got back home, Aunt Diana called. "Well," she said, her tone tinged with amusement, "you certainly made an impression." I sighed. "How bad is it?" I wasn't sure I even cared. "Pretty bad," she admitted. "No one is speaking to your parents. Your mother called Cousin Madison yesterday, asking to borrow money." Madison hung up on her. "Not my problem," I said simply. Aunt Diana exhaled. "Your dad says they might have to declare bankruptcy. They burned through all their retirement savings trying to keep Ryan's business afloat." "Still not my problem," I said, unwavering. "I know," she murmured. "I just thought you should hear it. And for what it's worth, I think you did the right thing. They needed to face the consequences of their actions." 8 months later, a Christmas card from my mother arrived in the mail. Inside was a long-winded letter full of apologies, regret, and talk of how much she missed me. She also mentioned, in painstaking detail, how they were struggling to keep their house. I didn't finish reading it. Instead, I tore it up, let the pieces fall into the trash, and walked away. Some wounds never fully heal. Some betrayals cut too deep to be forgiven. But if there's one thing I've learned in the years since my life was torn apart, it's this. Sometimes the family you choose is far better than the one you're born into.